Yo, you seen Pacquiao get beat up, yo?
Oh, he did?
She got knocked the heck out.
Dag, really?
He didn't even get up.
Oh, man.
But we're going to be talking about Jesus, and I'm talking about Pacquiao getting knocked out. Put me on the spot. Like, I feel like I'm on Barbara Walters now. So the question is, what do I see or feel is wrong within Christianity? Is that accurate? All right. Well, that's an interesting question. It's a hard question, primarily because I'm a young man in the faith, and I'm new. Only been a Christian for 9 years, so it's difficult for me to speak as if I'm somebody proven in the faith. Nevertheless, I'm not ignorant to just how I see things happening. So take this with a grain of salt. What I see is problematic within the faith. There's a lot of things. Namely, I see that there are a lot of people, rather than spending time with God themselves, are going to look at sermons on YouTube or different websites and following their favorite pastors and substituting scripture reading and personal prayer time with sermons. And that won't suffice, because God calls us not necessarily to follow men, although we ought to follow men who follow Christ, but rather to see God for ourselves and get a revelation for ourselves, pursue holiness and pursue learning of God for ourselves, because that's what he calls us to do. And you can't get that with supplementing scripture reading with sermons, although sermons are good. So everything in context. Also, I see just a lackadaisical sort of attitude with holiness. I see that in the pursuit to be relevant, not always, and I'm for relevance, I'm for contextualizations and things like that. But in the pursuit to be relevant, we've become not distinct people. The Bible calls us to be a peculiar people, different. We're not from this world, and so they see us just like them. There's a scripture I think about. It says, "The unbelievers will ask you, what is the reason for the hope that you have?" And I think a lot of times the unbelievers aren't asking us that. Is because we live and act and look just like them. And so I want to be relevant, but only I want to be relevant like Christ. He was different, and that's why I think he was relevant. He was so different and unlike everybody else. He oozed holiness, and people wondered about him. And I know that I can't be perfect, and I don't care to be perfect. But if possible, I want to be blameless, and I want to be so different that they asked me that question. And so yeah, I want to be relevant in a context of holiness. You know what I mean? Without substituting holiness just to be relevant. I've been in the world. Most of my life I've been in the world. I know what being cool is, but my mindset is different now, and what I think is cool isn't like the past. So yeah, I don't know how else to answer that, but okay, so the question is, what do I think drives people away from Christianity? Okay, I think a few things. I think there's a sense in which people believe Christians to be hypocritical. I mean, a lot of times people will say, well, I follow Christ, or I go to church, or I'm a Christian, but they live totally unlike what Christ calls them to live. And people aren't stupid, so that offends them, it turns them off. And the hypocrisy is just a big turnoff. So people are offended by that. I know oftentimes friends of mine, they would say, at least we can respect the Muslims because they actually act and do what they said they'll do, whereas you Christians are fake. So that's one aspect. I think also there's a sense in which Christians can give off sometimes this air of superiority. That is, like, I'm better than you. That shouldn't be the case. I'm just saying people sometimes see that, and that turns people off because it comes off judgmental, and people don't like to be judged. Ultimately, though, I think the biggest thing that turns people off from Christianity and therefore Christ is Christ. Christ is the biggest hindrance to Christianity. He said it this way: the world hates me because I testify that their deeds are evil. And so they basically, he said in another place, light has come into the world, but men love darkness more than light. Therefore, they don't come into the light. So ultimately, my reason for why Christ, or people don't come to Christianity and therefore Christ, is because they know instinctively or innately somehow that this Christ is different, and he requires a lifestyle of total obedience and total surrendering to him, and they don't want to do that, and that's the ultimate reason why.
This is more like you ain't seen.